Hello, my beautiful tribe. Hello and welcome. And I know I have not been posting on his channel lately, but I'm going to start. I want to try to upload at least 2 videos a week here. Okay. If you're new here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and leave me some love in the chat. Today, we're going to talk about why people actually break spiritual laws. And so one of the biggest misunderstandings that people don't know or realize that they're not doing it like that. They don't realize they're actually breaking the laws. What I want to say, they don't realize it. So they don't intentionally wake up and saying, I'm going to violate spiritual laws today. They don't wake up saying that. Most people break spiritual laws because they're operating from wounds, fear, ignorance, survival mode, and unhealed patterns. Okay, patterns that they could have picked up from their family, patterns that they could have been programmed with. And this is how they actually break spiritual laws, through these patterns. So I'm going to give you 10 reasons why people actually break spiritual laws. Okay, the first one is that they don't know that the laws actually exist. Okay, many people know physical laws, but they do not know spiritual laws. And to be honest with you, spiritual laws should really be taught in middle school, high school. They should be really implementing a spiritual law program into schools these days. Okay, but examples of spiritual laws would be cause and effect, sowing and reaping, free will, integrity, responsibility, and law of truth, right? When people don't understand a law, they often create consequences without really realizing it. And so they don't always understand why their life may be stagnant or stuck, things of that sort. Just like gravity works, whether you believe it or not, principles often produce results, whether someone is aware of them or not. Number 2, they operate from survival mode. When someone is afraid, they lie, they manipulate, they control, they hoard, and they portray. Okay? Fear causes people to make decisions that they normally wouldn't make. Survival mode often pushes people into short-term thinking, small-term thinking. So they don't really know how to not operate in manipulation. And manipulation is very subtle. Sometimes people don't even realize that they're actually manipulating you through emotions, mental, playing mind games like, oh, let me see, and all of that. They don't know how to really operate out of an energy or frequency or vibration out of love. So they manipulate. And they could have been taught to do this as well, too. Number 3 is going to be unhealed wounds that create distorted choices. Yes. A wounded person may reject people before being rejected. And this was one of the wounds that I had to actually heal from. I used to reject people before they would reject me. Okay. I would break up with people before they would break up with me. Okay. I was like, yeah, I'm checking out. I can't, so I was a runner. Okay. I was definitely a runner. And so wounded people may control others to try to feel safe. They sabotage opportunities. They push away love. They create unnecessary conflict. Many harmful actions come from pain rather than wisdom. That doesn't remove responsibility, but it helps explain their behavior because they still have to be responsible for their actual behavior. Number 4 is going to be the ego wants to control. So the ego often says, I know everything. I don't need guidance. Rules don't apply to me. Okay. Everybody love to think that the rules don't apply to them, right? I deserve special treatment. So why not act or move like this, right? Humility protects people from many unnecessary lessons. The bigger the ego, the harder the lesson often becomes. The bigger the ego, the harder the lesson actually comes. So if you ever met any hard-headed people, they're going to have real big lessons, okay? Number 5 is going to be instant gratification feels better than discipline. People don't like discipline and they don't like consistency sometimes, okay? When they're dealing with this kind of energy, unhealed energy, usually somebody unhealed has a hard time with discipline and they have a hard time with being consistent with their discipline. Many people know what's right. The challenge is doing it consistently. Okay, what I just said. This is what they have a hard time with, right? Examples of this would be spending instead of saving, gossiping instead of remaining silent, reacting instead of responding, quitting instead of persevering. So, discipline is often a bridge between knowledge and wisdom. Remember, discipline is the bridge between knowledge and your wisdom. It's the bridge between the two. What do you know, and how can you act and make better choices off of the wisdom of what you actually know? Okay. Number 6. They ignore their inner warning system. Most people have moments when they know something feels off. Okay. And so that quiet feeling might say, don't send that text. Don't enter in that deal. Don't lie. Don't retaliate. People do not listen to that, right? And walk away. That's the biggest one that people always ignore. They always ignore the walking away part. And when you are talking about spiritual laws and you're being guided or warned to walk away from something or leave somebody alone or don't retaliate, especially when you're like going up against a high priestess or an empress or divine feminine, divine masculine, or somebody that's really just spiritually ranked in the spiritual realm, and you're being guided to leave that person alone and just walk away, you don't listen. Yeah, there's big consequences for that, okay? And what happened is there's always correction for the consequences. So consequences is usually course in spiritual correction, however God see that fit. But emotions can become louder than discernment. So this is why it's hard for people not to listen, because they're acting off of their emotions and not their actual discernment. Ignoring these inner warnings repeatedly will create, again, consequences. Number 7. Number 7 is going to be pride makes it hard to admit mistakes. And this was one thing that I dealt with my marriage. I was married for 25 years. And my ex-husband had a pride and ego out this world. So it was very hard for him to admit his flaws and his mistakes and the things that he needed to heal. He was a great person, but like I said, when you have wounds and unhealed trauma, it always blocks you from what you need to be in stepping into that highest version of yourself. So pride says, I'm not wrong. Okay. They deserved it. That's what they get. I don't need to apologize for nothing, right? Growth begins when a person becomes willing to take ownership for their actual actions and the situation or dynamic that they actually created. Okay. The strongest leaders often are the quickest to admit when they've missed the mark. Number 8, they mistake power for authority. And those are two different things, okay? Power for authority. There is a huge difference. Power is the ability to influence. Authority, influence, exercise with wisdom, responsibility, and integrity, okay? Again, power is the ability to be able to influence people. That's your power. But authority is influenced with wisdom. What have you learned? Your choices, decision, responsibility, and how do you move in integrity? Many people seek power without developing character. That imbalance often creates harm. Okay, so you always want to make sure you're working on your authority and your character first before you start going around exercising your power. Okay. And number nine is they follow the crowd, honey. They follow the crowd. You ever dealt with somebody and they just listen to what everybody else say? They don't have a mind of their own. These people are literally breaking spiritual law. They're literally breaking spiritual law. Sometimes people know something is wrong, but they participated in it anyway. You know, they do it anyway just because everyone else is doing it, or the green leader, group leader is doing it. So let's go do it. They want acceptance. They fear standing alone. True leadership often requires standing apart from the crowd and from everybody else. And unfortunately, people who like to run with the crowds are usually the ones who are breaking spiritual laws. They don't have a mind of their own. So they're doing it unconsciously, but they don't realize they're actually doing it. And number 10 is going to be growth usually happens through consequences. Many lessons aren't learned through information, they're learned through experience. That's why we go through a lot of experiences. People often change when relationships ends. You either level up or you're going to go through that lesson again, right? Opportunities disappear, okay? Trust is broken. Okay. What else? Patterns begin to repeat. Okay. And so consequences become teachers when wisdom is actually ignored. So whatever they're going through is going to actually teach them because they're ignoring their wisdom. They're ignoring spiritual laws, right? So here's the deeper part about this, right? Spiritual laws are not simply about punishment. Okay, they're about alignment. Remember, everything is about alignment. God does not punish us, God corrects. He comes and corrects, and He gets us back into alignment. Okay, especially when we surrender or we repent, He's going to push you back into alignment. So, when people act with integrity, responsibility, honesty, respect for others, and awareness of their consequences, their lives tend to become more stable and more fruitful. When they consistently act against those principles, life often becomes more chaotic until the lesson is understood. So they'll keep going through this failure and that failure and losing this and losing that and going through this and going through that until they actually learn what they need to learn, or the wisdom. What is this actually teaching me? And sometimes you got to actually slow down and really dive deep and say, okay, what is this situation teaching me? What is this person teaching me, right? The goal isn't about perfection. God does not want to see us to be moving in perfection, right? The goal is He wants to see is awareness, growth, accountability, and learning to align your actions with the person that you are actually becoming. Who are you becoming? Most people don't break spiritual laws because they're evil. They break them because they're wounded, fearful, unaware, operating from ego. The lesson isn't about punishment. It's all about alignment. Always remember that. Alignment, alignment, alignment. So if you went through something or you're losing something or something happened in your life, it was only God correcting you to push you into alignment. Okay. I love you guys. If you would like more teachings, please check out the description link in the bio, and y'all have a beautiful and blessed day. Peace.